American Airlines Flight 191 Heavy, Chicago Departure Control, radar contact, climb and maintain flight level 310. The calm voice of air traffic control echoed through the cockpit speakers as Captain Walter Lux acknowledged the clearance with routine professionalism. It was May 25, 1979, a perfect Friday afternoon at Chicago O'Hare International Airport, with crystal-clear skies stretching endlessly above the bustling terminals. The massive Douglas DC-10 sat gleaming on the tarmac, its distinctive tri-engine configuration casting long shadows across the concrete as ground crews performed their final checks. Inside the aircraft, 258 passengers settled into their seats, many eagerly anticipating Memorial Day weekend destinations. Completely unaware that they were about to become part of one of the most horrific aviation disasters in American history. The gentle hum of conversation filled the cabin as flight attendants moved through the aisles, offering reassuring smiles and ensuring everyone was comfortable for the journey ahead to Los Angeles International Airport. Children pressed their faces against windows, marveling at the other aircraft moving around the busy airport, while their parents organized carry-on bags and prepared for what they believed would be a routine 3-hour flight across the American continent. Captain Walter Lux, a seasoned veteran with over 22,000 flight hours under his belt, had been flying for American Airlines since 1952, earning a reputation as one of the most meticulous and safety-conscious pilots in the fleet. His calm demeanor and encyclopedic knowledge of aircraft systems had guided countless flights safely across the continent, making him the ideal commander for this routine transcontinental flight. Colleagues respected his attention to detail and his ability to remain composed under pressure, qualities that had served him well throughout his distinguished career spanning over 2 decades. First Officer James Dillard, equally experienced with 9,175 flight hours, sat beside him, running through pre-flight procedures with the methodical precision that had become second nature over his distinguished career. Dillard had joined American Airlines in 1963 and had developed a reputation for his thorough understanding of aircraft systems and his exceptional crew coordination skills. Flight engineer Alfred Udovich completed the cockpit crew, his expertise in monitoring the complex systems of the DC-10 providing an additional layer of safety that passengers trusted implicitly. Udovich's background included extensive training on the DC-10's intricate hydraulic, electrical, and pneumatic systems, making him an invaluable member of the flight crew whose knowledge would prove crucial during the coming crisis. The aircraft itself, registration number N110AA, was a relatively new addition to American Airlines fleet, having entered service just over 4 years earlier, with an exemplary maintenance record and no significant mechanical issues. The DC-10 had been delivered from the Douglas Aircraft Factory in Long Beach, California, in February 1972, representing the cutting edge of wide-body aviation technology. Its spacious cabin could accommodate up to 380 passengers in a high-density configuration, though American Airlines had chosen a more comfortable layout with 258 seats arranged in a 2-class configuration. The aircraft's maintenance log showed consistent compliance with all required inspections and service bulletins, with no history of major mechanical problems or unusual maintenance actions. Recent engine inspections had revealed no anomalies, and all 3 Pratt & Whitney CF6-6D engines had been operating within normal parameters throughout their service lives. The aircraft had accumulated approximately 20,000 flight hours since entering service, well within the expected operational envelope for its age and utilization patterns. American Airlines Flight 191 represented the pinnacle of modern aviation technology in 1979, with the Douglas DC-10 being one of the most advanced wide-body aircraft in commercial service. The 3-engine configuration was designed specifically to provide redundancy and safety, with the unique rear-mounted engine offering backup power in case of failure of either wing-mounted engine. This design philosophy emphasized the ability to continue safe flight and landing even with the loss of one engine, a capability that had been demonstrated numerous times in service. The aircraft's sophisticated flight management systems included multiple backup circuits for critical functions, advanced weather radar for navigation around storms, and state-of-the-art communication equipment that maintained constant contact with air traffic control centers across the country. Passengers boarding that afternoon included families heading to California for vacation, business travelers conducting important meetings, and individuals simply visiting loved ones during the holiday weekend. Among them were William and Corinne Borchers from Milwaukee, celebrating their recent wedding anniversary with a long-awaited trip to the West Coast. The couple had saved for months to afford this special vacation, viewing it as a second honeymoon and an opportunity to explore the beaches and attractions of Southern California together. The Jockle family from Chicago was traveling together, parents and children excitedly discussing their upcoming Disneyland adventure as they found their seats in the spacious cabin. Young voices chattered animatedly about the rides they wanted to experience and the characters they hoped to meet, their enthusiasm infectious as other passengers smiled at their excitement. The departure preparations proceeded flawlessly, with ground control clearing Flight 191 to taxi to runway 32 right for takeoff. Captain Lux expertly maneuvered the massive aircraft through the complex maze of taxiways, following the painted yellow lines, while maintaining constant communication with ground controllers who orchestrated the intricate ballet of aircraft movements at one of the world's busiest airports. The DC-10's three Pratt & Whitney CF660 engines spooled up to idle power, their distinctive whine filling the cabin with the familiar sounds that experienced travelers found comforting. The engines had undergone their most recent major inspection just weeks earlier, with technicians finding all components within acceptable limits and no indications of impending problems. Weather conditions remained perfect with light winds from the southwest at 8 knots and unlimited visibility, creating ideal circumstances for departure. The aircraft's weight and balance calculations had been completed meticulously, confirming that all systems were operating within normal parameters for the planned flight profile. Total takeoff weight was calculated at 379,000 pounds, well within the DC-10's maximum certified takeoff weight of 430,000 pounds, providing ample performance margins for the departure. Ground crews performed their final walk-around inspections, checking for any fluid leaks, loose panels, or other anomalies that might affect flight safety. Everything appeared normal as the aircraft sat poised for departure, its external appearance giving no hint of the structural weakness that was developing within the left engine's mounting pylon. The pylon, a critical structural component that connects the engine to the wing, had been subjected to maintenance procedures that inadvertently introduced stress concentrations at key attachment points. Unknown to anyone at the time, microscopic cracks had been propagating through the pylon's aluminum structure for weeks, approaching the critical size where catastrophic failure would become inevitable. These cracks were too small to be detected by the visual inspection techniques available in 1979, hiding their deadly presence until the moment when aerodynamic and mechanical stresses would exceed the weakened structure's ability to resist. At 2:59 p.m. Central Daylight Time, the massive DC-10 began its takeoff roll, engines accelerating to full power as Captain Lux applied steady pressure to the rudder pedals to maintain directional control. The aircraft gathered speed steadily, passing through 60 knots, then 80 knots, approaching the critical V1 decision speed where the takeoff could no longer be safely aborted. First Officer Dillard called out the airspeed increments while monitoring engine parameters, everything appearing completely normal as they accelerated down the 10,000-foot runway. Engine temperatures, pressures, and rotational speeds all remained within green arc ranges on the cockpit instruments, providing no warning of the catastrophic failure that was seconds away. The nose wheel lifted off the ground at the predetermined rotation speed of 165 knots, and Captain Lux gently pulled back on the control column, raising the aircraft's nose into the climbing attitude that would carry them skyward. For a brief moment, everything proceeded exactly as thousands of previous takeoffs had, with the familiar sensation of acceleration pressing passengers back into their seats as Chicago fell away beneath them. Flight attendants prepared to secure the cabin for climb, moving through the aisles to ensure all passengers had their seatbelts fastened and tray tables in the upright position. Then, at 2:59:47 p.m., just as the main landing gear left the runway surface, a catastrophic failure occurred that would change aviation history forever. The number 1 engine, mounted on the left wing, suddenly separated from the aircraft in a violent explosion of metal and fire that sent shockwaves through the airframe. The massive engine, weighing over 8,000 pounds, tore away from its mounting pylon, taking with it critical hydraulic lines, electrical cables, and portions of the wing's leading edge slats that were essential for maintaining controlled flight at low speeds. The separation occurred with such violence that it could be heard and felt throughout the aircraft. A tremendous bang followed by severe vibration as the airframe responded to the sudden loss of mass and the dramatic change in aerodynamic forces. Passengers on the left side of the aircraft watched in absolute terror as they witnessed the engine tumbling away from the wing in a ball of flames and smoke, the horrific reality of their situation becoming instantly apparent. Screams filled the cabin as people instinctively understood that something catastrophic had occurred, though few could comprehend the full implications of what they had witnessed. The sudden loss of thrust from the left engine, combined with the massive increase in drag from the damaged wing, immediately threw the aircraft into an uncontrollable situation that would test the limits of both human skill and mechanical engineering. The asymmetric thrust condition created a powerful yawing moment that tried to turn the aircraft to the left, while the damaged wing began producing different lift characteristics compared to the undamaged right wing. Captain Lux instinctively applied right rudder to counter the tremendous yawing moment created by the asymmetric thrust condition, while First Officer Dillard began running emergency checklists with the desperate efficiency of a man who understood they were fighting for their lives. The aircraft continued climbing initially, carried by its momentum and the thrust from the remaining two engines, but the insidious effects of the damaged wing were already beginning to manifest in ways the crew could not fully comprehend. Unknown to them, the engine separation had severed hydraulic lines that powered the outboard leading edge slats on the left wing, causing them to retract while the right wing slats remained extended. This asymmetric slat configuration created a deadly imbalance in lift distribution that would prove impossible to overcome with conventional flight controls. Flight engineer Udovich frantically monitored engine parameters and electrical systems, trying to assess the full extent of the damage while the aircraft struggled to maintain its precarious climb. His training had prepared him for engine failures, but nothing in the manual covered the complete separation of an engine during takeoff. The remaining two engines continued operating normally, producing their full rated thrust, but they were fighting against aerodynamic forces that were rapidly becoming insurmountable. Warning lights illuminated across the instrument panel as hydraulic pressure dropped in the number 1 system. Electrical generation decreased with the loss of the left engine's generator, and various other systems began showing abnormal indications. Radio transmissions filled with urgent calls as air traffic controllers watched the developing emergency on their radar screens, immediately clearing other aircraft from Flight 191's path while emergency vehicles began rolling toward the anticipated crash site. The cockpit voice recorder captured the intense concentration of 3 highly skilled professionals working together in their final moments. Their training and experience focused on the impossible task of saving 271 lives aboard their crippled aircraft. The crew's response demonstrated the highest levels of professionalism and competence under extreme circumstances. Captain Lux maintained aircraft control while assessing the situation, his years of experience helping him prioritize the most critical actions in the face of multiple system failures. First Officer Dillard coordinated with air traffic control, declaring an emergency and requesting vectors back to O'Hare for an immediate landing attempt. Flight engineer Udovich worked through emergency checklists, trying to isolate failed systems and restore whatever functionality remained. Their coordination was seamless, each man performing his assigned duties while supporting his crewmates in a display of teamwork that exemplified the best traditions of professional aviation. Unfortunately, the laws of physics were working against them with relentless inevitability, as the damaged wing continued to lose lift while drag increased beyond the capability of the remaining engines to overcome. As the aircraft reached approximately 400 feet above ground level, the inevitable occurred with devastating suddenness. The left wing, starved of lift due to the retracted slats and increased drag from the engine separation, began to stall while the right wing continued flying normally. This created a rolling moment that overwhelmed the flight controls, causing the aircraft to bank sharply to the left, despite the crew's desperate attempts to maintain wings-level flight. The aerodynamic stall began at the wing root and progressed rapidly outward, destroying the smooth airflow that was essential for generating lift. The DC-10 entered what aerodynamic experts would later describe as an unrecoverable deep stall, with the nose pitching up uncontrollably while the aircraft began falling from the sky in a flat, spinning descent that no amount of pilot skill could correct. Control inputs that would normally restore level flight had no effect as the aircraft departed from normal flight envelope into a regime where conventional recovery techniques were useless. Passengers experienced the terrifying sensation of being pressed against their seats as gravitational forces exceeded normal limits, many understanding instinctively that their situation had become hopeless. The cabin filled with the sounds of terror as people grasped seatbacks and armrests, some praying aloud while others called out to loved ones. Flight attendants, trained to provide reassurance during emergencies, found themselves facing a situation beyond their worst nightmares, yet many continued trying to calm passengers even as they recognized the gravity of their predicament. The aircraft's attitude became increasingly unstable as it descended through 300 feet, then 200 feet, with the nose pitching up and down while rolling uncontrollably to the left. Captain Lux and his crew never stopped fighting, applying every technique they knew in a desperate attempt to regain control, their dedication to saving lives evident in every action recorded by the flight data recorders. The final moments unfolded with heartbreaking swiftness as Flight 191 descended toward an open field adjacent to a mobile home park near Des Plaines, Illinois. The aircraft's trajectory carried it over a busy highway where motorists looked up in horror at the sight of the massive airliner falling from the sky in an inverted attitude. Some drivers stopped their vehicles and ran from the area, realizing that a catastrophic impact was imminent. Captain Lux and his crew continued fighting the controls until the very end, their dedication to saving lives evident in every action recorded by the flight data recorders. The cockpit voice recorder captured their final words as they struggled against impossible odds, their professionalism never wavering even in the face of certain death. At 3:42 p.m., just 46 seconds after the engine separation, American Airlines Flight 191 impacted the ground in an inverted attitude, exploding into a fireball that could be seen for miles across the Chicago metropolitan area. The force of impact was so tremendous that the aircraft was almost completely destroyed, with debris scattered across a wide area as aviation fuel ignited in a conflagration that consumed everything in its path. The explosion created a mushroom cloud of black smoke that rose hundreds of feet into the clear afternoon sky, visible to shocked witnesses throughout the northwestern suburbs of Chicago. The impact crater extended deep into the earth, testament to the enormous kinetic energy released when 379,000 pounds of aircraft struck the ground at high speed. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, but the intensity of the post-crash fire made any rescue attempts impossible. All 258 passengers and 13 crew members aboard Flight 191 perished instantly upon impact, along with 2 individuals on the ground who were struck by falling debris. The tragedy became the deadliest aviation accident in United States history at that time, sending shockwaves through the aviation industry and prompting immediate investigations into the causes of such a catastrophic failure. Families waiting at Los Angeles International Airport received the devastating news that their loved ones would never arrive, transforming what should have been joyful reunions into scenes of unimaginable grief and loss. The investigation that followed revealed a complex chain of events that had made this disaster almost inevitable. Teams of investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board, Federal Aviation Administration, Douglas Aircraft Company, American Airlines, and Pratt & Whitney converged on the crash site to begin the painstaking process of determining what had caused such a catastrophic failure. The recovered wreckage told a story of structural failure that began long before the fateful takeoff, with maintenance procedures at American Airlines having inadvertently weakened the engine-mounting pylon through repeated removal and installation cycles. The Federal Aviation Administration discovered that improper maintenance techniques, including the use of forklifts to remove entire engine and pylon assemblies as a unit, rather than following manufacturer-recommended procedures, had contributed to metal fatigue in critical structural components. This shortcut, implemented to reduce maintenance time and costs, had the unintended consequence of introducing stress concentrations that accelerated crack growth in the pylon's aluminum structure. When the pylon finally failed during takeoff, it not only caused the engine separation but also severed hydraulic and electrical systems that were essential for maintaining controlled flight. The routing of these critical systems through the pylon area represented a design vulnerability that had not been fully appreciated during the aircraft's development. The loss of leading-edge slat control proved to be the most critical factor in making the accident unsurvivable. These devices, which extend automatically during low-speed flight operations, are essential for maintaining smooth airflow over the wing and preventing stalls at the high angles of attack required during takeoff and initial climb. When the left wing slats retracted due to hydraulic failure while the right wing slats remained extended, it created an asymmetric lift condition that no pilot training had prepared the crew to handle. The aircraft's flight characteristics changed so dramatically that even perfect technique and immediate recognition of the problem could not have prevented the ensuing stall and loss of control. Detailed analysis of the wreckage revealed that the pylon failure had initiated at a critical attachment point, where maintenance-induced damage had created a stress concentration. Metallurgical examination showed classic fatigue crack growth patterns, with the final fracture occurring rapidly once the crack reached critical size. The investigation team used sophisticated computer modeling to recreate the failure sequence, confirming that the combination of engine separation and hydraulic system damage created an aerodynamically unrecoverable situation. Wind tunnel tests conducted with scale models demonstrated that the asymmetric slat condition made controlled flight impossible at the low airspeeds associated with initial climb after takeoff. Post-accident analysis revealed that the DC-10 fleet had experienced several similar engine separation incidents, though none had resulted in such catastrophic consequences. These previous events had been treated as isolated occurrences rather than symptoms of a systemic problem with maintenance procedures and pylon design. The Federal Aviation Administration immediately issued emergency airworthiness directives requiring detailed inspections of all DC-10 engine pylons and temporarily grounded the entire fleet until compliance could be verified. This unprecedented action affected airline operations worldwide, as carriers scrambled to inspect their fleets and implement revised maintenance procedures. Manufacturing procedures were revised to prevent the type of maintenance-induced damage that had weakened N110AA's pylon assembly, while pilot training programs were enhanced to better prepare crews for managing multiple system failures during critical phases of flight. The families of Flight 191 victims became powerful advocates for aviation safety improvements, working tirelessly to ensure that lessons learned from this tragedy would prevent similar accidents in the future. Their efforts contributed to significant advances in maintenance procedures, inspection techniques, and crew training programs that have made commercial aviation substantially safer. Organizations such as the Flight 191 Memorial Association were formed to preserve the memory of those lost while promoting continued safety improvements. Memorial services held annually at the crash site serve as poignant reminders of the human cost of mechanical failure and the ongoing responsibility of everyone in the aviation industry to prioritize safety above all other considerations. The memorial, located near the crash site, bears the names of all 271 victims and serves as a place of remembrance for families and friends who continue to mourn their loss. Modern aircraft design has incorporated numerous safety enhancements directly attributable to lessons learned from Flight 191, including improved engine mounting systems, redundant hydraulic circuits, and enhanced flight envelope protection systems that can prevent aerodynamic stalls even under extreme circumstances. Contemporary maintenance procedures now require more frequent and detailed inspections of critical structural components, while computer-aided analysis helps identify potential failure modes before they can develop into catastrophic problems. Non-destructive testing techniques, such as eddy current inspection and ultrasonic examination, can detect cracks that would have been invisible to the visual inspection methods available in 1979. The aviation industry's commitment to continuous improvement means that every accident, no matter how tragic, contributes valuable knowledge that helps protect future generations of air travelers. If you've been following our channel's coverage of aviation disasters, you know how important it is to understand these tragic events so we can honor the victims while learning from their sacrifice. The story of Flight 191 represents both the worst and best of human nature, showing how a series of seemingly minor decisions can lead to catastrophic consequences, while also demonstrating the incredible dedication of pilots who never stop fighting to save lives even in hopeless situations. Please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell so you never miss our in-depth analyses of the incidents that have shaped modern aviation safety. Your support helps us continue bringing these important stories to light, ensuring that the lessons learned from Flight 191 and other tragedies are never forgotten. Every subscription helps us reach more people with these crucial safety messages, creating a community of aviation enthusiasts who understand that learning from the past is essential for protecting the future. The memory of Captain Walter Lux, First Officer James Dillard, Flight Engineer Alfred Udovich, and all 271 individuals who lost their lives on that terrible May afternoon, continues to inspire ongoing efforts to make flying safer for everyone. Their final moments, marked by professional dedication and unwavering commitment to their passengers' welfare, exemplify the best qualities of those who dedicate their careers to aviation. While we cannot change the tragic outcome of Flight 191, we can ensure that their sacrifice continues to save lives through the safety improvements their loss made possible, making their legacy an enduring testament to the power of learning from tragedy to prevent future disasters. The aviation industry today is immeasurably safer because of the lessons learned from this accident, with millions of passengers benefiting from the safety enhancements that emerged from this tragedy, ensuring that Flight 191's victims did not die in vain, but instead contributed to a legacy of safety that protects air travelers around the world.